Well, good evening. This is devotion for Wednesday, the 15th of October, and we are in Genesis chapter 39. We're going to be reading verses 17 through chapter 40, verse 8. And Joseph has just been attempted to be seduced by Potiphar's wife. She grabbed a hold of him when no one was in the house. He fled, but left his jacket in her hand, his cloak or whatever he had on. And now she calls the servants from around the home, and they come running, and she makes these accusations. And this is what she says. She spoke to him, talking about the people there, the men that came in. She spoke to him with words like these, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came into me to mock me. So it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. And so it was," it says, "so it was when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, Your servant did to me after this manner, that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison." And then listen again to these words. "But the Lord was with Joseph." Even in the prison, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison, just like he did in the house of Potiphar. Verse 22, "And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper." Chapter 40, verse 1. "It came to pass after these things that the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their lord, the king of Pharaoh of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief butler and the chief baker. So he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was confined. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. So they were in custody for a while, and then the butler and the baker and of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. And Joseph came into them in the morning and looked at them and saw that they were sad. So he asked Pharaoh's officers, who were with him in the custody of his lord's house, saying, Why do you look so sad today? And they said to him, We each have had a dream, and there is no interpreter for it. So Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, please. Again, we've seen the life of Joseph, and we noted that all these things have happened to him, right? His brothers were so jealous of him that they wanted to kill him. And then Judah, one of his older brothers, decided, don't kill him. We can make a profit off of this. Sold him into the Ishmaelites, who took him down to Egypt, sold him into slavery to the house of Potiphar. And God said of him that the Lord was with Joseph. And the Lord blessed Joseph, everything that he did, so much so that even Potiphar, the pagan his pagan owner, saw the hand of God in his life, put him in charge of his whole household, and blessed his household and all of his business dealings so much because of Joseph. And now he's been falsely accused. You know, the devil was behind that. Gets him thrown in prison, but the Lord was with him in the prison. And so God blessed him even in the prison. He winds up being in charge of everything going on in the prison. The Lord is with him so that the keeper of the prison even sees God's hand on his life. And now the chief butler and the chief baker are thrown in prison, and they have these dreams, and Joseph says, only God knows the interpretation of dreams. Tell them to me. And it's interesting because, remember, when Joseph was still just a young man, he had a dream from God. He had a dream from God about the 12 stars or the 11 stars, and they were all bowing down to him, referencing his brothers, and even his parents bowing down to him. And so now we know that Joseph is self-aware of his connection with God and the understanding of dreams. So he says, tell them to me, because I know the God who can interpret dreams. What do we glean from this account? It would have been so easy in Joseph's situation to question God, to question the goodness of God, the plan of God. I mean, maybe even the existence of God. God, if you're up there, why are you allowing this to happen to me? What have I done? But we don't see any of that. Instead, we see that whatever the situation he's in, sold into slavery into Egypt, terrible, awful, separated from his father and mother and his brothers, sold into a strange country, into slavery. But the Lord was with him. The Lord blessed him. And then he's falsely accused. He didn't do anything. He didn't sin against God by lying with Potiphar's wife. He fled. He got out of that situation. He did the right thing, and yet he still got falsely accused and thrown in prison. He could have become bitter. He could have said, God, I don't trust you anymore. You let me down. You ever felt like God let you down? I can tell you, I have felt that way. You know, when my daughter was lying on her deathbed, and I prayed and begged God to spare her life, and he took her. I felt let down. But at the end of the day, if you can't trust God, then what do you have? What's left? If you don't surrender to the goodness of God, the mercy of God, and the will of God, what do you have? You have nothing. And here's Joseph in prison, and yet he knows that God is with him, even in the prison. God hadn't forsaken him. I'm sure that while he was in the prison, there were times when he questioned, God, what are you doing? Why am I here? What's your plan? What's your purpose? God, have you forsaken me? I'm sure his flesh was screaming that all the time. But he knew his God was always with him. I can only imagine how many times he heard his father Israel talk about how the Lord, how he wrestled with God all night long. How God had appeared to him on his way back home before he met his Joseph's mother, and how he saw the ladder touching heaven and earth, and the angel was ascending and descending, and how the Lord said, I am with you. I'm the God of your father Abraham and Isaac. And all this land I will give you, and your descendants will be like the sand on the seashore and the stars of the heaven. I'm sure he told that story to his son Joseph many times. I'm sure he had, again, like I said, mentioned that night before he returned into the land of Canaan after being exiled for 20-some years because of his fear of his brother Esau. I'm sure that he recounted how he wrestled with God all night and how God changed his name from Jacob the trickster to Israel, Prince of God. And how God had again promised that he would be with him. So he knows about the faithfulness of God. Yeah, I'm sure he knew that his uncle Laban had done all those awful things to his father, his great uncle. Tricked him into marrying Leah and made him serve 7 more years for Rachel. Then tried to steal all the flocks from his father, but the Lord thwarted that plan. And now he's in prison. After being falsely accused, after choosing to do the right thing and not sin against God, he still winds up in prison. What does this teach us? It teaches us that we walk by faith and not by sight, because if we walk by sight, we're bound to fall. We have to trust God no matter our circumstances. We have to trust God in the good times and in the bad. Knowing we know the character of God. We see it in his word all throughout. The Lord never leaves his people. He never forsakes his people. The Lord is patient with us, long-suffering. He's kind. He's gentle. He's forgiving. He's merciful. Those are immutable characteristics of God's nature. And he loves us with an everlasting love. He knows how many hairs are on our head. He knows all these things about us. He knows when we rise up and when we lie down. So we might as well trust him. Joseph was put in a very, very difficult situation. No doubt about it. It would have been easy for him to recant his faith in the God of his fathers. But he did no such thing. And I believe that God was using this time in the life of Joseph to hone him, to sharpen him, to sanctify him, chip away all the things that were negative about his character, humble him, so that when it came time for God to use him for his main purpose, which was to preserve the people of Israel, to preserve his family. God had to get him in the right spot at the right time so that he could interpret Pharaoh's dream and be exalted to the place where he could do just that. There's no way Joseph could have understood that at this point in his life. It's only as he was able to look back later when he was reunited with his brothers and again say to them, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. So we need to trust the Lord. Trust in his goodness. Trust in his mercy. Know that no matter what we're going through, no matter what you are going through today, God's still in control. And God has a plan and a purpose for our life. And it's for his glory and our good. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a blessed day on Wednesday the 15th. We will see you again tomorrow.